two. One, it's generative AI, and I don't have to tell you how important and impactful this technology is in empowering climate solutions. The second one is SaaS, software as a service business model. San Francisco knows how to leverage that business model. It's very attractive for fundraising as well. So I think right now, given what you said, so tariff or restructuring of the whole value chain, it's not time to rebuild the energy infrastructure from scratch. It's time to optimize it using AI. Uber didn't build new car. It optimized existing one. Airbnb didn't build new apartments. It optimizes empty spaces. So I think right now using generative AI to optimize energy consumption, so for example, grid edge intelligence, this is a smart investment in the current climate. Thank you.
So I cannot speak for the investment perspective, but I will cover the founders or like the business opportunity. I think we all, or at least the people I got to speak with today, we all agreed this is a tough market, and a lot of people trying to leave, like exit the space. And at the same time, as someone who watches the business side, so our tool, we basically help accelerate sales with AI in climate. And I'm reflecting on some of the opportunities that we came across just recently. And a lot of times you really have to stress test your business on very simple question, like would any company I approach today pay for it? And so in climate tech, that's really, in this market environment, that's risk management, that's energy efficiency, that is helping them report correctly. So anything that is here to stay, and you know for sure your space, so like it doesn't actually have to be like climate. I had some conversations today in this room where we discussed like a lot of times, you know, you don't have to invent new things. You can help with your expertise. If you know how to do sales decks and like you're the best in town, like you could work with climate tech companies, the ones that are doing carbon removal and other innovations. So the opportunity will always be there as long as you're talking to businesses and you're hearing this is what they need.
Well, I would say right now the best investment is probably in yourself. I mean, right now there's so many things to think about in this climate space. And just speaking from this company that I work for a company called Nittera, and we are the world's largest producer of spark plugs. So you know the little things that go into internal combustion engines? Well, we produce those things. And I'm really sitting here because the company is really struggling, because what's going to happen with electromobility? What's this transition? What does that mean for the company? And so, you know, you have a lot of these legacy companies like Nittera looking at, okay, so what's the next? What is the right investment? What's the future investment? And in many ways, what is the next spark plug, right? What is the next spark plug that we should be really investing in? So for us, it's really around, me personally, it's around energy transition. So anything that you can educate yourself regarding energy transition, I think is super important. We're looking at hydrogen today, looking a little bit beyond that in fusion. I think fusion is gonna have a lot of potential. It seems a little bit like science fiction right now, but there's over 49 companies working in this space. There's over $70 billion that has been invested so far. So look out, fusion is coming. But I would really, recommend if any founders here is to really kind of think big, think more in the future, really think about how you're going to move the needle going forward. And I think the answer is going to be there.
So I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Right now, it's really hard as a founder. But the less commonly spoken thing that blows people's minds is it's even harder as an investor. And I'm what they call a limited partner. So I invest in VCs that invest in climate. They're struggling worse than the founders right now. So I cannot stress enough how hard this environment is today. So I try to be pragmatic about these things. When you're in a difficult environment, you have to think aligned interests. So what I've been doing for the last few months is really encouraging founders to think for profit and get creative, think tangentially. And I've been telling them, don't call your company a climate company. I've built my entire career building things that have had more impact than a significant amount of climate companies that I've never called a climate company. And we're kind of in a time right now where you have to do that because it's so difficult. I think one thing that should be noted, and you kind of touched on this, invest in yourself. I will say, to expand on that, invest in your people. So the most valuable asset in a startup is its people. It's the human capital. It's not the cash. And what I've noticed in a lot of my portfolio companies and companies I've founded is really interesting. The new generation gives a crap. They don't want to just make money, they care how they make it. When they go to something like this, not just for Climate Week, they don't want to be ashamed to talk about their B2B SaaS AI wrapper optimizer. That's not helping the world in any meaningful way. Use that to your advantage, because you'll be able to get the best talent in the world if you have crystal clarity on your vision and a path towards impact.
So that wasn't, but you can hold on to it, because I think that my thought process was very much in line with some of those ideas. I'll just speak to y'all. It's cutting in and out, but can you guys hear me now? Yeah? Okay. So you led several ventures that blend profitability and real climate impact. Can you share a few of those examples of innovations you spearheaded that show how your profit models can effectively blend real on climate?
So you're asking me to call them climate companies now? So just to name a few of the ones I've directly been involved with, I'm a pretty good investor. I'm an okay entrepreneur, but I think I'm a pretty darn good inventor. I'm a big believer that you can create something out of nothing in a garage. I've done it 3 times. And that is truly the American dream in many ways. So one of them is I invented a bicycle lock and motorcycle lock that explodes with noxious vomit-inducing chemicals when a thief cuts it. And you might be wondering, how the hell is that a climate company? Well, it turns out there's over 10 million bicycles stolen every single year. And the most glaring statistic is 2 out of 5 people that have a bicycle stolen that commute to work on their bicycle never ride again. That translates to millions of people getting back in their cars every single year. And over the last 10 years, in the billions in carbon reduction. So another one is I invented a process. I don't know if you guys know how wine spirits are aged, but basically you have to cut down an oak tree that's many hundreds of years old and then make a barrel, and then you have to ship that barrel to whoever's producing brandy or whiskey or tequila, and then you have to put the tequila in it, and then you have to ship it to a place where it gets stored, and you get the picture. It's highly inefficient. So I invented a process that allows you to treat the oak to in-bottle age. So also kind of a tangential way of reducing climate impact and carbon footprint. But the one that I'm most excited about today is actually applying a very first principles way of thinking, which is the number one thing that predicts whether people make responsible sustainability decisions is financial security. Financial security is the number one predictor of whether you recycle, whether you eat sustainable food, everything. And we're talking orders of magnitude in impact, and it's something that impacts every single person in this room, not just cyclists, not just people that like tequila. So I'm particularly excited about that. Sidepocket is democratizing access to the strategies that are antiquated, over 70 years old, that financial advisors currently apply, and modernizing them in a meaningful way that will allow everybody to, if they're responsible with saving and investing, to build a nest egg for the retirement and ensure financial security. And I hope that that serves as a foundation for all the amazing climate tech that's being built that I've been had the privilege to hear just in the last couple of days during Climate Week. Because frankly, if we don't solve this problem, climate tech won't matter. We're going to be in a civil war in 30 years. We're going to have people on the streets having to go back to work, not able to afford food, not able to afford housing. And I know that's a very grim way of looking at it, but it's something that we have to think about.
So who's already saving for retirement? Some people are a little shy about it. So we'll jump to whether you're building climate tech or just trying to run more responsible business, supply chain decisions have a massive impact. So I was curious, what do you think founders often underestimate when it comes to the complexity and or opportunities within their supply chains?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think, climate is really interconnected. There's all these things, the pieces and parts. I would think that as a founder, you usually start off with the technology and less so about the problem. But with climate, there is a kind of an overriding problem or challenge that everybody faces. But I do think that a lot of founders underestimate the challenges of getting something off the ground. Either whether it's partially related to the vision or really where you're kind of in love with your solution. And so that's always kind of where I thought I think that people run into. But once I think you get that nailed, the other challenges is really around capital deployment and getting capital in order to make the steps towards your goal. So, there's this thing in VC land where you got the seed and A and B and C, and you're like kind of wondering what those tranches are. Well, that's really kind of representative of the maturity of your project, whatever that happens to be. And so if you're thinking you're going to just go from a C to B or D, or really to the kind of your end goal right away by skipping some of those steps, well, that's probably something that you really are going to need to reevaluate and think about when you get to those kind of stages. And so I would say that, if you're an early stage founder or you're even an experienced founder, the key is to find good mentors. Really find the mentors, people that really have experience, and take their advice where you get value from, and then really try to advance your project through those types of relationships. And I think in the end, you're going to be much better as a founder by taking on that kind of advice. And then finally, I would say that there are projects where it just is not, it doesn't work, right? Sometimes it's your baby, so you don't want to quit or you don't want to pivot. But at some point, you've got to really realize it is probably not the right thing. If you're either not the right fit or it's just not the right timing. So there needs to be a process where you actually do wind it down or you transition. And a lot of people, I think, don't, want to make it happen, and they keep going and going, and yeah, you know what the results are of that. But anyways, those are, you.
We're all gonna share a mic because the other one was not working. I can see y'all's face. No, so I think that flows really well into what I was gonna ask Lana, because Lana's a second-time founder. And I know you're currently in stealth. That's what your LinkedIn says. But I shared a little bit about what you're working on, and as a second-time founder in climate tech, what's one key lesson you'd share with someone looking to start their own company and potentially raise funding in the space today?
Okay, where do I start? So I think looking back at my entire journey, well, first of all, this San Francisco is the most perfect place. Even if you have the worst idea in the world, this is the perfect community to go out and people just say yes. So don't be afraid to look embarrassed, and you will be embarrassed. But yeah, I think looking back at my entire experience being here and starting my first company, and I think what investors often share and what other founders share is that they have a vision at the very beginning and they just dream big, and it's really hard to balance out the business aspect, meaning you actually going after the customers and closing them and having a solid business case. And after that, I feel that is the time to think through the mission, and it's nice when you have impact. You should never basically discount the real world. Otherwise, there is no way to survive and give back to the community, which I believe we're all trying to do here. So currently, I would say, if you're trying to fundraise, make sure that you're building something that you have as fewer stakeholders as possible, and someone is willing to pay for it. So whether that's even first couple of paid pilots, try to get them paid, and then after that, try to convert them. And so what I've done, and I believe that was probably the worst strategy because I didn't know much about San Francisco. I came to the city and I thought, oh, I can just go to investors and ask for money. That's the whole plan. And I did. And they were like, well, do you have a co-founder? I was like, no. They were like, okay, come back when you do. Then I said, oh, I got a co-founder. Can I get a check? They would be like, well, do you guys have a product? We're like, no, well, come back when you do. Now we got a product. Well, do you have a customer? No, come back when you do. And then you have a customer, and then and then basically fundraising is actually so psychologically difficult and tricky, and you actually have to just state your worth and don't waste your time. So you must get to the deadline. Okay, we right now have a deadline where end of May fundraising starts. So by that time, we're only focusing on our client base and our traction. So I walk into the meetings and I have no doubts. I'm just teaching us as a business, and that's how I feel it's worth approaching it. And again, this community is so fantastic. You will find amazing Slack channels, any of this type of events where people will make introductions, offer, again, all of the referrals to corporates. So a lot of opportunities, and I would say if you're in this room, probably just do it.
I love that. Just do it. Okay. I have one more question for Daniel, and then we'll open it up to you all for questions to our panelists. Okay? So, or sorry, not Daniel. We're going down a list, but I've been jumping around. I know we're talking to Matteo now. Okay, Matteo, you've helped over 100 Swiss startups navigate the U.S. market. For international founders, especially those building in climate tech or those maybe not building in climate tech, but hopefully having a climate impact, as Daniel says, what mindset or strategy shifts do you think are most critical for success?
Thank you. So I'll try to build on what Daniel and Koichi said. So first of all, one on mindset. Swiss and entrepreneur founders need to embrace what I call solution first over climate first. In Switzerland, in Europe, leading conversation on sustainability opens door. In the US, specifically fundraising right now, you should position your startup as a business opportunity that happens to have positive impact on environment. So it's a matter of framing, and sometimes European startups and entrepreneurs are so focused on their technology that I really see them struggling, pitching first their carbon removal metrics before even the revenue models. So that's one thing. The second is on the strategy. And again, it's also something Koichi said, talking about mentors. So climate tech in the US specifically also requires coalition building over solo innovation. And yesterday was the opening of the Climate Week, and Al Gore said, the fuel of innovation is collaboration. And it is. US founders are so good in building this coalition, bringing together entrepreneurs, investors, people from finance, policymakers. And that's also something that I see in European founders. So the ones that are really successful are the ones that spend as much time building their ecosystem of stakeholders as they do to perfection their product.
Thank you. I want to open up to you all. Does anybody have a question for one or all of our panelists? We heard a lot of different themes and ideas. Anyone have an initial question? Yes? One in or two?
Hi. First of all, Lana, that was so insightful because now I can put myself in the position of my clients, which I never have done before. My second question is for Daniel, as an investor, when people are pitching to you or you're seeing a lot of pitch decks, I would say, what's the percentage of those that are shit?
Thank you for your patience, everybody.
I think Jordan might be right. So I'm in a very fortunate position that I'm not on the ground level. At least not usually. There's multiple layers of filtering before it gets to me, generally speaking. I think there's a higher percentage of time that I find an exceptional idea, but it's not the right founder. And I think one big piece of insight that I can share with all of you who are founders or innovators in here is, if you think you're the only one working on what you're building, you're not. Every single idea that I've been pitched, there has been at least 3 or 4 doing exactly the same thing. So for most investors, it's not about the idea, it's idea-founder fit. And they're trying to evaluate if you're the right person to back that horse. And I don't know if we have time to go into some of the things that I look for, but in networking. But yeah, I would say the vast majority of pitch decks that I come across, I have to turn down just because the founder, I don't think they'll make it. And avoid saying things like, we're gonna exit in 3 years. That's not a good thing. I don't know who started propagating that. Say, this is my passion, I want to work on it for the rest of my life.
Oh, I don't believe my clients when they say that.
Good.
All right, we have a question in the front here.
Hi everyone, thank you. This has been really helpful. Interested to hear if you have some examples of revenue models that are specifically working and gaining traction currently.
Does anyone want to grab that first? Revenue models that are working. Lana, do you want to talk about your revenue model and if it's working?
Well, definitely depends on the kind of startup. I can only speak about both of my startups were B2B SaaS, and I come from basically B2B SaaS sales for fintech companies in the past. I would say subscription is a way to go, the way to enter the market, at least for both of my companies. We did it with like paid pilots, so you show results, but you still ask for a little bit of money in front, and then you work to build that reputation so they can sign up for recurring subscription. But I do recognize that there are so many startups where the product is sort of usage-based, and I guess like those are a little more, like business model needs a little more thought. Yeah, anyone else wants to?
I'm just going to say any revenue model that you can prove is repeatable and sustainable, because it varies for every business.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. I would say, kind of in the area that I'm looking at is around the energy transition. So, back in the day when I started in 2000, whatever, the cost of solar was 30 cents a kilowatt hour. Today it's under 5 cents. It's clearly the cost leader in the market. And so revenue models that actually take advantage of that, of lower cost, I think are fairly, for long term, for certainly in this climate and talking about energy transition, those are the areas I think I would focus in on as well.
Yeah, I mean, also from my perspective, totally agree with them. I think it's crucial to just add something on top. I think it's crucial to know the sales cycle, because they're changing, they're getting longer. So that's super important to have it, and because if you get surprised by that, about how difficult it is to close a deal, then you are in big trouble. So totally agree with her. Also, the strategy that I suggest to startups coming from Europe is starting with a pilot. Sometimes it's not even not paid pilot, and then convert it, because you need to build reputation, and that's a safe way to start.
Thanks, guys. We have a question over here.
Hello. Thanks y'all for sharing your insights. Specifically, a question for Daniel. You mentioned getting out of SaaS and into product, and I was wondering if you could speak to mitigating against the uncertain tariff situation as product gets us into global supply chains. Is this a consideration in investment decisions? How are you helping founders get around the situation?
So in one word, expensively, but most people in my position see this as a short-term reality. The general consensus is that the tariff fiasco will last probably 6 months, but probably not more than a year. So everyone's kind of in a wait-and-see position. Of course, there's a lot of things that you can do to mitigate that risk by globalizing your company. The United States is a really big consumer of useless crap. Turns out there's actually a lot of democratization of youth bubble wrap being sold in Europe, South America, and parts of Asia, Africa, etc. So for most of the companies that I've either advised, invested in, etc., they're making a more meaningful push to globalize their products and their services. And that's only going to probably hurt the American people in the short term until there's a resolution.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think we'll take, so I see a question in the back. We'll take one, maybe two more, because the pizza's kind of seducing me.
You're right. Sorry, yeah, we had to do the trek up here. So, some soothsayers on the internet and analysts of the market outlook over the next couple decades have said that as the baby boomers pull their capital out of the market into their personal savings for their retirement and final years, the environment for entrepreneurs is going to be one of a lot less capital than has been circulating for this past few generations. If that, first of all, do you all believe that will be the case? And second of all, if that is to be the case, is there anything that a would-be founder can do to adapt to that more austere environment?
Who would like to start? I see you thinking, Daniel. Koichi?
Yeah. I think that there is some truth to that, this kind of trend where you have this huge wealth transfer. But you have to also remember that a lot of businesses, corporations, they have to make investments, and I'm kind of talking about Nittera as well. So, we're in the business to be in business, so you have to make investments. And where we're seeing a lot of the new innovations is in startups, actually. It's not self-generated. And so I think the companies that don't really look at young startups or, for that innovation, I think those companies are doomed. So from that perspective, I do believe, we just, we have a $100 million general fund, but we also just launched a $50 million fund, mainly based in Japan, but is really looking at sustainability, hydrogen, energy transition, carbon capture. So, just as an example, corporations are going to be actively investing, for the foreseeable future, regardless of, generational transfer of wealth.
So one thing I just want to say is venture capital is pretty well known in climate. There are climate VCs specifically. One thing that is changing in a material way, speaking of wealth transfer and how investments are made, the sliver invested in venture capital is actually shrinking. So venture capital only makes up about $1.3 trillion in total deployment. Can anyone guess how much is invested from family offices? In family offices, we're talking individual families that have substantial wealth. And it's essentially over $10 trillion. So almost an order of magnitude. But the statistic you have to keep an eye on is the percentage of those family offices that are making direct investments, whether it's in climate, startups, etc. That percentage has increased from only 20% a little over a decade ago to today, over 60% of family offices are making direct investments in startups, innovations, companies, founders, etc., even at the earliest stages. So this is a material move in the right direction. There's no longer this middleman, if you will, that's evaluating deals. There are $100 million family offices that are writing $1 million checks to innovations that they think are going to have a substantial impact. So go after them if you can.
Yeah, to add it on like a macroeconomic level, you can, if you look at the M2 global money supply, it's the monetary aggregate liquidity metrics. You'll see that there's a lot of liquidity in the market right now. That's kind of peak. It's still continuing like increasing. So as soon as there's liquidity in the market in the future, that liquidity will flow into high-risk investment, such as venture capital. So that's also a way, a metric that you can see to prevent a little bit 2 or 3 years ahead.
Thank you. I think I'm going to leave it there so that I can let our panelists go. Y'all can ask any follow-up questions to them in networking. And we have one more announcement from my COO, Toku. Give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming today. I'm one of the co-founders of Qlay, and as Jackie mentioned earlier, we are an AI automated engineer hiring platform. We use AI to source and screen engineering candidates from various countries, and we assess their technical skills, and we place the top talent in companies here. So we're doing this special campaign for if you guys book a meeting within the next 48 hours, we will give you 400 free engineering hours. So, and that's it. And we finally have pizza, so please enjoy. Thank you very much.